So let's begin, shall we? Hello and welcome. My name is Dan Candido, and I'm with Interfacing Technologies, and I'll be your moderator. Let me first thank you for taking the time to attend today's webinar. Before we begin, let's look at a couple of items. Immediately following this webinar, you'll receive a survey. Please take a minute out to complete the survey as it helps both of us to present topics you wish to see going forward. The last item before we begin is to let you know that after the webinar, we'll send you a copy of today's slide deck with a link to the webinar and our contact information for you to share with colleagues. So a look at today. We'll start off with a quick look at interfacing. After that, the OG himself, Jim Sinur, will join us to present the power of smart processes in the digital age. Following Jim's presentation, we'll open up the floor to any questions that you've sent our way. Right now would be a good time to give you a brief background of interfacing. Interfacing has been a leader in digital enterprise management for over 25 years, with over 1 million users and global follow-the-sun 24-hour support. Interfacing can be found in well over 46 countries and over 17 industries. Interfacing is ISO 27001 certified and GDPR compliant. Interfacing has been recognized consistently year on year for their leadership as a digital twin provider, a leader in EBPA solutions, covering a variety of automation, architecture, and analysis verticals, as well as business operating systems and intelligence. Interfacing accomplishes all of this within our digital integrated management system environment, providing solutions for QMS, for business process management, low-code automation, GRC, and as an integral part of enterprise architecture. On to our featured speaker. Our featured speaker today is Jim Sinur, CEO, Floresk, and Forbes contributor. Okay, here's a mouthful coming up. Jim Sinur is an independent thought leader in applying digital business platforms, customer experience journeys, business process management, automation, low-code and decision management at the edge to business outcomes. His research and areas of personal experience focus on intelligent business processes, business modeling, business process management technologies, process collaboration for knowledge workers, process intelligence, optimization, AI applied to business policy, rule management, IoT, and leveraging business applications and processes. Jim is also an author of BPM, The Next Wave, and his latest book, Digital Transformation, Innovate or Die Slowly. And as if Jim isn't already a busy person, he's also a well-known digital and traditional artist with a respected list of commissions created. Wow. Welcome, Jim. The screen is now officially yours.
I'm getting tired just listening to that. Well, today we're going to talk about the power of smart processes in the digital age, and smart processes are absolutely essential. Next slide, Dan. And you know enough about me. If you've been around the industry, I've been around, I'm as old as dirt. And I spent a lot of time developing processes, developing databases, leveraging AI early in the cycle. Then I went on to Gartner to become, one of the stronger analysts at the time, helped develop the hype cycle, have more inquiries than any living analyst. Hope they don't kill me to take that away. No, they won't. And then I hung up my spurs and decided to be an independent consultant so I could pursue my art and other things, and just started a free blog and started to attract customers, and it's worked out very well, and I keep learning and on the edge and I could do that with freedom, which I couldn't do at Gartner. So next slide, please. So why are smart processes important? Well, you need intelligent processes as they're permeating the organization. Every time you do one step in front of another, whether it's precedence or whether it makes sense or you have an emergent process that's growing and changing, processes are everywhere. Also, they need to be smart because we're going to start automating some of the work. And so we're going to give up some of the thinking to the process. And I worked on an underwriter workbench at Northwestern Mutual Life, where some of the underwriters gave up, some of the work to the processes and to the AI assistants and bots. So I think that's a trend. We have a skills issue right now, and it's only going to get worse, in my opinion. So we need more automation. We need more assistance of the knowledge worker. And we also need to please our customers, not just give them a pretty screen and a nice flow and let them do things on a mobile app. We have to have something that actually pleases the customer and serves them outside the four walls of any organization. That means their journey, wherever it happens to start, and their journey, wherever it happens to end, and your company's, your organization's participation. And that requires smart processes and smart journeys. Next slide. So we're going to go through three key issues. One is, what is a process and where do they play in digital? And they play everywhere. We'll show you that. And why are IQ processes more effective? And how do we keep that IQ high? Just like humans, processes have to keep learning to stay effective, to be pertinent. Next slide, please. So here's a typical view of a process. We started in the old days with very structured and standard and simple processes. They had well-worn paths, etc. Then we branched out to case collaboration, which basically says, we know we have goals and targets, but how we get there, some of it's kind of collaboration, some of it's actually pieces of structured processes. And then the third is the idea of an emergent process where you have IoT on the edge and bot collaboration, agent collaboration. And most processes are going to have all three eventually. So next slide. This is typical, the kind of names you have for a process: actor, step, action, precedence, process flows, workflows, activity states, customer journeys, best practices, straight through processes, and BPM, which is kind of an umbrella topic. So you'll see those words all over the place. You'll see almost every tool have processes. Business people relate to process. Even if the process is emergent and it is morphing and emerging as we go. Next slide, please. So what are the digital investments that are popular today? And I've identified 10 of them. Content capture, whether that's voice, video, image, paper, documents that have been scanned. There's work collaboration focused, where people are collaborating, and this is particularly important in a hybrid environment. Process automation focused, let's get a straight line processing, let's put this under the water so people don't have to touch it. Persona focused, workplaces that have, in essence, a workbench by skill set, by job type, like an underwriter workbench. Customer journey experience, analytics focused, mining focused, and we're seeing a lot of emphasis on analytics, mining, and AI learning today. Number 6 is extremely helpful. And then there's AI edge focused, where AI is not only just trying to find interesting patterns, but actually it's out there taking action on the edge before it hits the organization. And you give it preset goals and constraints and let it do its own thing is particularly important in emergent situations. And then there's agile integration, low code, fast change, and that's why we like low code. And then pre-built business function. Next slide, please. And let's see where process is involved. Well, everywhere you see the green, it's heavily involved. wherever you see the caution or the yellow, it's involved, not as heavy, but still involved. And the red is where there's minimal process activity. Though some people would say that low code started in BPM and started in the process, but the raw low code creating microservices, it's not as important, but you got to string those microservices together to get some kind of sensical sequence, or at least communicate through data triggers. So Agile integrations are usually, rather fixed and not as process oriented, and tend to be a bit more dynamic. So next slide. So you can see processes everywhere. So why are high IQ processes more effective? And it's like asking, why don't I get a smarter person working on something? And the answer is kind of obvious. So I'm going to take a look at this triangle and say the bottom of this triangle, because it's an inverted triangle, is the highest level of intelligence requirements. So if you take a look at process impact to date, which is in the kind of a dark pink color, and the scope of RPA and the scope of low code, they're basically working from other directions. The process is coming from the business perspective, and RPA is coming from the technical perspective. And if you take a look at the three benefit pools here, we have technical benefit pools, we have business inside a business pool, and then we have the B2B pool, which is where we get into really supporting a customer journey or a part journey. And we can see we're having a lot of problems with that right now with our supply chains at this particular point in time. So you can see that the higher you go up on this chart, the more intelligence that's needed. And that's why this is an inverted triangle. And you can see that today we've done the bottom technical, and we're still adding to that. We're doing the business process automation, but we haven't assisted all the resources yet. And we haven't supercharged those resources to be super smart. And in some cases, the bots are acting independently in a swarming fashion. And well, that's a whole nother topic to speak on, but not right now. Next slide, please. So let's talk about the journey to smarter processes and bots. There's simple task, steps that take actions. And then there's more complex work that might be less discrete and end-to-end and more resource-centric, that actually recognizes conditions as they happen and supports very complex work. And we will probably move into, and we're starting to see some companies do this, dealing with processes across multiple contexts, business contexts in different companies, and they're actually making decisions, not only recognizing when patterns are happening, and then deciding to take actions. And the benefit level goes up as we have more adaptable reuse. So it's not just, hey, let's look up something on a repository and reuse it. Let's reuse this microcode. It's dynamic reuse. Next slide, please. So smart processes go beyond action. Most people think all processes do is action. A smart process can actually find signals, patterns, and decide whether it's a threat or an opportunity. They can make decisions, figure out if there's an emergent scenario like a COVID, like hyperinflation, and adjust the rules and the constraints and the algorithms to deal with it. So, processes, as they get smarter, move on to the front end management, and they also orchestrate all the resources, whether they're bots, people, machines, physical robots. So you can see that processes are going to leach out into areas that are non-traditional. Next slide, please. So, and the key part of this is optimizing all the resources and coordinate them. I mean, there's examples of, drones going out and inspecting pipelines and calling in the right maintenance people with the right equipment. So if that particular pipeline happens to go through a swamp, it sends an airboat and 2 mechanics and tells them exactly what to do, gives them videotapes if they're not experienced to solve a particular problem. So we see that there's the physical side of it. We also see that there are process components and data that need to be brought in, and there needs to be some kind of cognitive analysis. The kind of AI today is not as cognitive. It's not really making decisions. So as processes get smarter, they're going to call the right cognitive cogbots to do that. And they really optimize the knowledge worker, the managers, and the physical workers in the processes. So the key part of processes is organizing resources. Next slide, please. So this is an eye chart kind of chart. And this is something that you should look at in the background, but it tells you where you might want to invest. And you can see the kind of digital technologies on the left, and across the top, you see the skill level it takes, the learning curve, the benefits, the time to gain, the cost, is there a large amount of case studies, or low amount or a high amount? Do you need to partner? Is partnering important? Is it, have a good reputation? Is it a growth area? And then I talk about in the comment section how mature it is, because some companies don't like taking risks. I work for 2 companies that love taking risks, Northwestern Mutual and American Express. They tried a lot of things. They were into AI early. American Express, it was for charges. For Northwestern Mutual, it was determining risk. So this is a chart that will come in handy for you to decide where you want to invest your money. And as the CPAs get more aggressive, as we start going into a recession, which I believe we're headed towards, with things like war on the horizon, with people fighting over resources now, countries saying you're not going to get my resources. We're going to see much more of this in terms of trying to make sharp decisions. Next slide. So what are the productive pairs? I gave you a nice chart that shows you, the strength of the individual technologies, digital technologies. Customer journey mapping and BPM delivers a balance of customer satisfaction and efficiency. And what we find is most CPAs fall on the side of efficiency and savings. But if you, really don't take care of your customers, they're going to walk, particularly the younger ones. The idea of loyalty to company and brand, it's kind of dissipating. I hate to say, even myself, who likes to follow brands that I trust, if they don't treat me right, I'll switch. Right now, I'm thinking of cutting the cable and going to 5G. So BPM and AI delivers and enables smart resources. BPM and RPA brings automation to boring and time-consuming tasks. BPM and process mining delivers reality-based incremental improvements. IoT and AI delivers IoT management and recognition of actionable patterns at the edge before it affects a company, and that really helps with any kind of governance. Next slide, please. There are also top triplets. I showed you some pairs. One that's really popular right now is BPM process mining and RPA that delivers targeted automation, and the accountants love that. BPM, IoT, and AI delivers action at the edge. We also, have workflow and content collaboration, low code and RPA, and unified communication, which allows you to collaborate on efforts that you're working on. Next slide, please. What we're seeing is all of these technologies are starting to come together on what I've termed as a digital business platform, which I invented in about 2015 and refined when I worked at Aragon in a consulting stint. And this is their slide. And we have these emerging technologies that are coming through the core, and they're affecting processes, cognition, data, machines and sensors, and business apps. And what we're seeing is even specialized digital business platforms that are really good, let's say, at an analysis. Others that are really good at process, others that are really good at creating data fabrics and pull in enough cognition and process. Next slide, please. So this is where we're headed long term. There's also open suites that are specialties. They're really good at cloud and data. Some are good at analytic and mining. Some are good at automation. These things will grow with capabilities. We're seeing a tremendous amount of merging and buying of technology companies. The process mining market has just about been wiped out in the last year, and all that's left there are really some small players, because people are saying we need these combinations in platforms to make progress. So picking the right platform is going to be essential for your organization. Next slide, please. Thank you, Dan. So how do we keep the IQ of our processes up? Next slide, please. Well, first of all, we have to invoke the kinds of things that we haven't done before, and that is the customer happy or not? When it comes to organizational focus goals, each silo wins, maybe, and the customer walks away upset. And we've been really good at silo transactions and organizational focus goals. You have to start considering the goals of the people, and you got to start listening to them. A lot of organizations are now actually listening to the voice, and every time the competition is mentioned, they go ahead and do something. It's not just watching some of the social outlets and channels. It's actually listening to the interactions. So we have to have friendlier process managed transactions. And then we need to sync it up with our customer journey, at least at our doorstep. Do we have a decent journey across our silos? Does the journey, is it friendly? Do we include the customer with the design? And then there's end-to-end customer journey where there's no pain. So you can see the pain index is one of the key ways to make processes smarter. Next slide, please. And, processes really tie to customer outcomes. So the end-to-end customer journey to customer outcomes has to link all of these below the surface, when you're looking at the top of the iceberg, kinds of issues, which is all of our systems, all of our technologies, and all of our outsourcing. So, I can't tell you how many times I've been caught, with a company who's tried to outsource something, and the outsourcer is doing their job as, and, reaching their goals, but they're really honking me off as a customer, the way they're doing it. I had one company that outsourced their payables to another country, and that country didn't understand that Jim and James were the same, and they refused to pay me because the invoice said James, which was my legal name, versus Jim. So they, even though the contract said James on it, that payable company didn't. So that kind of stuff happens all the time. Next slide. So what we're seeing is part of a smart process is to close the gap between our processes, which some of them were designed, a long time ago, and some of them are running on burning platforms even, and closing that gap with increasing maturity so we can optimize on the customer's goals too and do in-flight adjustments as needed. So there may be some rewrites involved with some of our processes to support real customer journeys. Next slide, please. So here's some examples of journeys tied to processes that, and I'm going to take one of the paths, and that's the content focused path, because everybody's got a lot of paper around and they're scanning it, and there's autonomous agents that are out there doing the scanning. And once the content comes in, it's a push solution that says, okay, where do we go with this document? What's the next step? There are some in-context bots that sense, decide, and act. They may even sort it, put in somebody's queues, and most of the content-based stuff has bots in it now. Most of it's push. However, we're going to see more pull, where you're in the middle of a customer journey and you pull up an image, you pull up a video. You're in the middle of fixing a pipeline or a washer or a dryer, and you pull up the right video. So you pull up the right content in context instead of, oh, here's the content, let's follow it. It's here's the process, how do we make best use of the content? So we're seeing a lot of things arise in that area. Next slide, please. Here's an example of one where a company applied natural learning bots to mine the content in a manual that was helping their servicemen. And this particular company dealt with pumps, different kinds of pumps, because you need different pumps for water, for air, for sewage, etc. And they were involved with architecting new buildings, and they went through and looked at all of their well-documented capabilities, and they classified the words and came up with intelligent resources, and they would pull up videos, they would give them advice. There would be chat bots for the people that were servicing these pumps. And this company is starting to take mind share because it does that. Next slide, please. Here's another one that content is used to assist in real-time active shooter situations where people are doing fast scans of floor plans, and they can show on these floor plans where activity is, and they can decide on the fly, the emergency personnel, what doors are open, what doors are locked, and they get facility familiarity, and they're able to decrease the response time and save lives. So here's an example of a very smart process that's using extremely smart content. And remember, we're just on the content path for this particular set of examples. Next slide, please. Here's another one in the mining area, where there's a video that's looking at the front end loaders, and you can see in the top picture that front end loader's missing a tooth. Well, obviously, if you're mining gold, you're missing some dirt, but the real issue is safety, because those things dump dirt into machines, and those machines have, motion, and those teeth can be kicked out and kill people. and there are cases where that is. So one Australian mining company uses video content in motion combined with intelligence, saying, hey, you know, that thing's missing a tooth, let's shut things down. And it also helps reduce false alarms, so it's cheaper and safer. Next slide, please. So, you know, RPA is, you know, one of those key capabilities that is used a lot with content, because it takes over the repetitious, tedious, and dangerous tasks. You know, in the example of you know, the large equipment, can you imagine, you know, instead of, you know, a camera that's up on a pole looking at the content all the time, some human out there, you know, trying to take a look and say, oh, you know, is that thing missing a tooth? Performing simple data entry, assisting in mass emails, performing transformational and conversions, preparing for transactions, linking with chatbots. RPA is great for the content journey, and it's great for other journeys as well. Next slide, please. So that's how you keep your process smart. You keep feeding it more information. You keep learning. And one of the areas that we're seeing a lot of is the idea of process mining. So, you know, if you think about it, you know, you have to dig big and look at big data, sort it, wash it, analyze it if you're trying to find the nuggets. And so, you know, what we're finding is applying AI and process mining finds bottlenecks, finds work imbalances, finds automation opportunities, looks at the long running cases and says, well, how could we do that better? All of these things are process oriented, making processes smarter and assisting the people that are the resources in the process. So obviously the manager wants to figure out how to do things faster, better, cheaper, with, you know, speedier outcome to the constituents and the customers. Next slide, please. So I gave you a small taste of what's in both of these books. They're available, you know, on Amazon, but I'm also available to send, you know, inquiries to. And so I was going to write a third book, and one of my authors died on me. So I decided for the third thing on this slide to show you a piece of my digital art. This one's, you know, a new one, and it's sold 3 or 4 times already. So I'm using digital as an artist to augment, you know, my traditional. Nothing that I have that I painted by hand isn't digital and available online that I can't alter. So digital is important to me as an artist. Digital is important to me as a songwriter, as all my songs, and I have an album coming out with 7 songs on it. We used digital all throughout the process. So everything is getting digitized. There are processes that need assistance, that need more intelligence, and that's where we're headed, folks. I think at this point in time, I turn it over to Dan.
Well, thank you very much, Jim, for your in-depth presentation. We now have some time to answer a few questions. If you can, feel free to submit your questions. You can still do that. And I know you've received a lot of information today. So let's see what we can find to ask Jim. Hey, Jim, you know, let me start with the first question. You know, the world is changing. How can we keep up with processes?
Yeah, one of the problems with old style processes is that they were fixed, and they didn't look for opportunities. So there was no such thing as process mining or data mining. So what we're finding is a huge increase in process mining. We saw SAP buy a process miner. We saw Appian buy a process miner. So the notion, or at least partner, we know Pega did as well. So all of the big digital business platforms are learning and they're keeping their processes up to date by that. The other thing is some of the processes have sensing embedded in them, because what you'll find is, processes are the grease trap of business. If there's an exception, it's going to get caught in the process grease trap. The things that go awry show up in the processes. So we're starting to see processes being fitted with the ability to sense instead of just mine. So mine is, a reactive approach. Proactive is look for unusual patterns and events and set those aside for somebody to look at. So, there's proactive and reactive ways of keeping your process changing and smooth.
Excellent. Let's see, we've got another one here. Is there a methodology to calculate IQ of a process?
That is the $1 million question. There is nothing that I'm aware of that shows IQ in a numerical fashion like people, until you can give a process the ability to see and speak and react so they can take an IQ test. There's no real way. Now, I made an attempt, and you'll find that attempt out on my blog, to identify the attributes of a smarter process. And it's done, in 5 different directions. So it has 5 vectors on it. The center is low intelligence and the outside is smart intelligence. And you can create a shape from looking at those 5 vectors, and you can show where the intelligence is and what kind of intelligence. Just like humans, we have different kinds of intelligence. I know people that are incredible at calculating. I'm not one of those. They become actuarials in some cases. Then there are others that are really intuitive, and they're good at shapes. They're good at creating pleasing things. That's the art side. Very few have both sides. So what we see is processes tend to be more on that intelligence, calculating side. And I did come up with a way of doing that, and probably could use some updating, but I haven't had a demand. So this might be the first demand that I'm hearing of. But you can visually show the intelligence shape by following this. And so if you go out on my blog and do a search for IQ, you'll find something there.
Excellent. Thank you, Jim.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, the next question. Are processes how people automate today, or are there any other alternatives?
Are there alternatives to, yeah, well, I mean, if you take it down to fine grained, which most analytics try to do, each step is a form of automation. So, if you write a microservice set of code, that is not in a process, though it's in a code sequence. And somebody could argue that a code sequence is a process because there's a flow to it. I won't make that argument. So there are ways of automating individual steps, and they become more powerful when you put them in some kind of sequence, whether it's a fixed sequence, an evolving sequence, which I call emergent. So yes, there are ways of avoiding processes, assuming that code doesn't qualify as a process. And there can be automation, but the more you link things together in an end-to-end behavior or a customer-focused behavior, which implies a process, the benefits will be larger. So, I mean, I used to write code in an arcane language a couple of them. One was Smalltalk and the other one was PL1. And we created individual modules, and they had benefits, but when we tied them together, we got much more benefits. And some of them were dynamic and some of them were static. So, programming can give you automation benefits. Yes. And so can robots, physical devices. They can give you benefits. And they go through a ballet of sorts themselves and in with other robots. And some would argue that that's a process. And I would be one of those that would argue that. Okay.
Great. Thanks, Jim. Listen, we've got another one here, hot off the presses. Is there a correlation between process maturity and high IQ process?
Well, I did a process maturity model when I was at Gartner. And I did say that the processes got more intelligent, the organization became more mature. So that was embedded in the Gartner maturity model. I don't know if they kept that up to date, because once you leave Gartner, you can't look at their research anymore. So I think there's a high correlation with process maturity and intelligence. And I believe the smarter we make our resources, the more mature we're going to become as companies. But then we start moving into the ethics pool and the visibility pool and the traceability pool. So I would put a caveat on there that there's some other things we have to look at in terms of constraints and visibility and ethics.
Excellent. I think I have one final one here. How important are processes in the customer experience?
I think they're absolutely essential. Now, I think it's also essential to buffer the customer from the process. I don't know if this happens to you, but every time I make a call, and I don't want to work online because I've got a hyper complex set of things that I want to do, I get on the phone and I got to pick which department I want to work with. That's so silly. That's so silly. I mean, so they're not buffering me from their physical organization. They're making me make the decision. And then I get bounced around. Nobody's my advocate from the beginning to the end. I'm my own advocate. And I hate to admit this, I'm supposedly a mature person. There's sometimes when I want to slam the phone down, frankly. So, I think processes that have an advocate, whether an advocacy role for the customer, would be more important than pushing a customer into your organizational silo stack, which emerged around skills. In fact, I worked at one company where we had a bloody battle at the executive level over this issue. And some people got fired. There were people that are coming and say, you can't force people to make that decision. You have to solve their problem. And there were people that were saying, no, we have our departments, we have our goals. You're going to tip everything upside down. You're going to affect my raise and my bonus. And you know how that goes. Doesn't go well. So what we're seeing is more collaboration, which yields better goals that go across silos. And I'm hoping that leaches out to the customer experience overall. I mean, we see it in Amazon. I mean, I'm a heavy user of Amazon. Do they do everything perfect? No. But do they make it easy for me? I'd rather spend my money with them than anybody else. Sorry to say.
Okay, thank you very much, Jim. The last question now is, I can actually answer that. Are the slides available? Yes, they will be. Expect to see something in your email within about 48 hours. So I see we're coming up close now to near the end here. Once again, I want to thank Jim Sinur for his incredibly informational presentation. It was very interesting. I'd like to add that Interfacing offers a digital twin solution, software solution that documents, analyzes, improves, digitizes, and monitors your business processes. More information on our integrated management solution platform can be found at interfacing.com, or drop us an email at sales@interfacing.com. If you do not have EPC, what are you doing? You should get it. There's a fully functional free trial available, as well as if you want a live demonstration, book a demo. It's that simple. Additionally, we'd love for you to join us at our Interfacing community, where you can complete a free BPMN 2.0 certification and EPC modeler training programs, as well as participate in our discussion forums and have a glance through the most common FAQs that we have. We've also left you Jim's contact info, which we will include in the slide deck presentation following the seminar. Jim, did you want to touch on your blog spot for a second here?
Yeah, and I think, I do write some things that are, market changing, but what I'm most proud of on that blog is that there are a lot of case studies. So if you go in the search area and put in case study, you're going to find lots of case studies as to what people have done with this stuff. And to me, a practitioner who spent 25 years in the trenches trying to get stuff done, while I really admired the people that were inventing new markets and the vendors that were doing that and the prognosticators that were predicting, to me, what people were doing in the real world spoke to my heart, still does. So that's why you'll find a lot of case studies out there, and you can find uses of process, you can find uses of RPA, you can find uses of rules, you can find uses of AI, you can find uses of collaboration, you can find uses of customer journey. And, if I have any way to guide you through 700 blog posts, use the search capability.
Well, thank you very much, Jim. It's a lot of case studies. There's a case study on case studies, I understand too. So there you go. Listen, so to close out, thank you all for attending. And soon after this webinar, you'll receive a brief survey and an email where you can download and share today's presentation. You'll also have our contact information. So I urge you to reach out if you have any questions regarding your process-based initiatives. With that, I would like to wish you all a good morning, a good afternoon, or a good evening. Take care, stay safe, and talk to you soon.